The thrill of victory and the agony of defeat.
Madison, great ball around the corner, Petticini, he beats them all! Junior Polar out wide, bumped away from Trindle, Sharks coming through, none of them can hold this!
Good evening and welcome to a preview edition of the Tip Sheet Podcast. As always, I'm your host, John, also known as 4020, and joining me on our Friday the 13th special edition, I guess, is my good mate, Sixties. Big fella, always a pleasure to have you on the show. How are you doing on this most, I suppose, spooky of Fridays?
Well, John, again, thank you to everyone who's been reaching out about Mum. She's still very, very, very unwell, unfortunately, and they're still trying to get to the bottom of it. But football is a bit of respite for me, mate. So that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, Friday the 13th, I can't let it go without a little spooky story myself, right? So going back about 25 years ago, I was living in this house, and just a normal brick veneer house in Winston Hills, right? And right from the start, all this crazy stuff was happening. But I'll just relate the common thing that happened time and time again. The stereo would turn on just on its own. And what you have to imagine with this as well, with it happening, is that this was like a stereo system that I cobbled together from bits and pieces of things. So none of it came as the one unit. So I'd got a turntable from one system, an amplifier from another system, a CD player from another system, a tape deck. And to turn on and play a CD, you had to hit the overall power button, amplifier, CD player, then press the button to play CD. And then not only that, every time it played, it was at full volume. And the volume control was one of those slide controls you had to move up with your hand. And if you put it on maximum on that system, the speakers weren't great, so it would distort and it'd be horrible. So I never had it set at maximum volume, and I could come home from work, it'd be playing. I'd get home from the football or from going out somewhere, stereo be on, full blast. You could hear it from halfway up the street. And I always used to think, I'm glad it doesn't happen when I'm at home in bed or something like that. And then one night it happened. And, I'm just laying in bed, and then I was woken up by the poof of the power going on. And then I could hear the distortion starting in the speakers. So obviously the volume control had moved up. I just ran straight out into the living room where it was, pulled the plug out of the wall, and never left it plugged in ever again.
Tell you what, if it powered up after that, you'd be really concerned.
Oh, mate, look, I have countless stories from that house. I moved out. A mate actually moved in, bought it and moved in, and he had his own stories. I never told him about it until after he moved in. And then he started saying to me, did you ever have something strange happen to you in that house? Any strange goings on? I said, like what? And then he started talking about different things. And then I told him what my experience was like there. So, very, very strange. But John, unfortunately, Parramatta has had a week which feels like a Friday the 13th week. And it's been capped off. I mean, it sort of started off on the fallout from Monday with Dylan Brown ridiculously suspended, insane, right? And I understand why the Eels didn't challenge it, but, the rugby league world as a whole was just dumbfounded by the suspension.
Yep.
And now, in a typical Parramatta outcome.
The double down.
The double down. Mitch Moses gets injured in Origin training with that calf injury. And I don't know, you would imagine it's going to be a month or so in all likelihood for something like this. And
yeah, I would not be too optimistic given his history of calves.
Yes.
To expect him before anything less than 4, maybe 5 weeks.
Yeah. And so this coming match will be without our halves. So probably we're going to be playing with Hawkins and Volkman. At least they're a combination, but you don't expect that your New South Wales Cup halves are going to come in as
it explains a lot about the team list, doesn't it, on Tuesday that we saw that so many players were pulled. But then again, it doesn't explain all the things that are happening there because the Cup team is very, very weak this particular round in terms of players.
I would imagine, John, when we get to it, I reckon Volkman will be a late withdrawal. From it,
given unless they're going to go ahead of Jaish, we don't want to preempt the preview, but Jaish Papali for the Titans game at 5/8. Yeah, you got to think that Volkman, just as a precautionary measure, you need to have your backup half now on ice because you've got no Moses, no Brown,
and you probably have to go with a combination, John.
The pair that's been working together for this season, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, but before we get too much further into the football talk, a bit of housekeeping, of course. A shout out to the sponsors of the show in Parramatta Leagues Club, home of the Parramatta Eels, and been a partner of TCT for a number of years now. We're very glad to be able to work together with the home of the Eels and do some great content there, both here in our homes, in our recording studios, as you were, but also live at the game for the pre-game. And then, of course, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan, and Parramatta, who have been the OG sponsors, 60s, the guys that have been there from day dot. So thanks to Greg and the crew from that way, and much love to them. And of course, if you are watching this on YouTube, could you please leave us a like and a subscribe? It'd be greatly appreciated. For a couple of seconds of effort, it goes a long way towards the algorithm and helping us sort of spread our wings and find other Parramatta fans to share the sickness with, I guess.
Yeah, and John, also a shout out to the people who have been becoming patrons.
Yes.
Of TCT. We've had a number of people who've taken that up lately. So if you like what we do and you want to help us out, Patreon is just we've only got the one level at the moment. It's just $5 a month, and that really does help us to continue getting that content out to you. It's and as I said, much appreciate everyone that's done that. You just have to hit the link on our website. You'll see it at the bottom of the homepage and also on all of our posts. So I really appreciate people who have been doing that.
Yep.
John, we do have some good news to start.
Believe it or not, there is some good news. Yeah, after all the disastrous stuff, but I suppose it sort of ties into the Jersey Flegg, doesn't it? 60s.
Yes, it does. It does. Yeah, with Jezaiah Funa-Iuta selected in the Blues under-19s Origin team. You and I were talking before we started the podcast, and we were like, and it's only Jezaiah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go be the... I know they didn't win the grand final, but they were the form team of the competition all year, being pipped in the grand final in extra time with a game that had its controversies in terms of some calls, but Roosters got them, which is fair enough, but one player feels a bit cheap. And I look at the team that was there 60s, and I know that I'm not saying that Lorenzo Talatona should have been picked ahead of Mitchell Woods or Toby Rodwell, both of whom are very talented halves who have got pedigree in higher grades. But surely that the reigning SG Ball tournament player of the year should have been picked in the 14. A guy that's shown he's got versatility to play 9 as much as 6 or 7. I don't know. I feel like there's a couple of players that could have been there.
I guess it comes down to representative selectors and whoever's coaching about, what players they want, rather than who's been the best performed. And that's where it comes down to, one or two individuals' personal preference. So,
yeah,
what can you do? And and look, all of those, players like Jezaiah and players like Wood and Rodwell, you'd imagine they're going to be playing first grade football down the track. and other honours may await them. But congratulations to
big
Jezaiah.
congratulations to Jezaiah. He deserves the call up 100%. He's been awesome in the SG ball, been very good in the Jersey Flegg, and
had a great partial pre-season with the
he
NRL.
was one that really stood out for you, wasn't he, for a young man playing in the forwards? And
physically, and also fitness-wise, was not out of place in that NRL full-time squad in that period up to Christmas. So no doubt he'll probably, I don't know this for certain, but I would imagine that he's doing a full pre-season at the end of this year. So looking forward to seeing his progress. Looking forward to watching him in that 19's Origin game. So John, we've just got the two grades this week with the Flegg and New South Wales Cup.
Doubleheader.
Of course, the great news for Eels supporters is that it's at Kellyville, a double header. Great facility there. We've had some really good crowds up there for the double headers that have happened over the last few weeks, and this is just another opportunity for people to go check out the Centre of Excellence, now newly named James Hardie Rugby League Centre there. And enjoy the facilities, check out what it looks like. You're not going to be disappointed at all. You're going to be amazingly impressed that this is a suburban facility at Kellyville. It's the largest rugby league centre of excellence in Australia, and I would imagine that that'd be the world. 5 football fields, the grandstand and community centre, the Centre of Excellence itself. And if you register for the event, which I think is next week, and members would have received an email from the Eels, they've got a community welcome day up there. Starts off with the Jersey Flegg and concludes with trial matches in the Harvey Norman Women's Premiership and also in the NRLW, where both of those teams are taking on the Bulldogs. I think the Flegg take on the Knights off the top of my head. But if you register with that, you can also register for a tour of the Centre of Excellence. And I know there are some people that are keen to have that tour. Most of the tours that they will end up doing are likely to take place in the off-season. And that's because it's a workplace and you've got the players in there using the sheds and all the different facilities there. So they just can't take people wandering through whilst the players are in the sheds or working out in the gym or whatever the case may be. It's their workplace. They've got their privacy. And it's in action all the time because there's training that goes on through the day. There's training that happens at night as people realise the NRLW are part-time players. So they've got jobs during the day, they train at night. And you've also got Jersey Flegg there often and New South Wales Cup at night because, again, same thing, study or work, they're part-time players. So, it's in action all the time. But register, which helps them to know how many people are going to turn up for catering and all that sort of stuff. And also you could put your name in the draw for a tour of the centre. So, John, we've been talking about heaps of other stuff other than the actual footy itself. So let's get into the Jersey Flegg game where the Eels are in action at 11 o'clock tomorrow.
Yes, as you said, 11 a.m. kickoff out at the Kellyville Park, or as you said, the James Hardie Park now of that new partnership. And it is a case of 3v9. Parramatta is sitting in the top 4, taking on the Warriors, who come to this game 4 wins, 2 draws, 7 losses. Parramatta 10 wins, 3 losses, no draws. And the Eels, with plenty of changes this week. We mentioned that both rosters been shaken up a bit. Obviously no Jezaiah Funa-Iuta, but they look like this. At fullback, we have Jaden Mbichi. On the wings, Muhammad Al-Amadine and Bradley Avery. Dakota Kakoi is in for Tavar Kabalu, but he did that last week as well, with Antioch Vitala Mariner in the other centre position. Cameron Bamblet moves from fullback to 5'8" provisionally, and he'll partner Lorenzo Talataina. No Matthew Hunter, no Joshua Lynn. And I suspect both of them will be playing. Matthew Hunter's been named in the grade up higher 60s, but we suspect that Joshua Lynn might end up replacing Ronald Volkman there too, if they're going to make that precautionary move for NRL depth. In the front row, Tyrese Lakini and Tiankin Brown. No Damascus Nima. He's got a promotion this week. Jack Hudson is the dummy half, though. On the edges, Dom Destratus. And this was a big TBA on our Team West Tuesday. We didn't know who it was going to be. Obviously, Jezaiah Funa-Iuta is out because of representative duties. We've got another debutant 60s. Big Chris Petrus, one of the standout players there for the Eels and the SG Ball, gets the call up to Flegg. So great, well done there, man. Been a fantastic prospect in their 19s. Now gets a chance in the
and he's one of the younger.
Yeah, like Cameron Bamblett is a first-year SG Ball prospect, as we believe. So making a big jump there, but he's a big boy. Speaking of the word big, very solid unit there is Chris Petrus. At lock forward, with Tyrese Lakini moving into the front row, Yeti Samuelu comes into the starting team to lock the scrum. That rounds out the 1 to 13. On the bench, we've got Patrick Spence, back from, I assume, a week off from injury, but good to have him back as a utility, joined by Tom Summer, Ryder Talangi, and Bo Lucian. So good to see Ryder there on the bench, mate. And then now moving into the reserve role is Lachlan Koinakis as he inches towards SG Ball. I suppose SG Ball graduation, but Jersey Flegg debut. So lots and lots of moves happening at this level, mate. The very talented SG Ball team has really started to filter into this squad. Obviously, we're missing a couple of guys we've seen there in the past, and Isaac Jim and whatnot, but plenty of SG Ball talent there, plenty of very good Flegg talent there. No frontline halves here this week. It's going to be very interesting. No Lynn. No Lynn, no Hunter. So big chance here for Lorenzo Talatona in the 7 to take control of his team. He's been really good 60s. He has surpassed expectations coming into the Flegg. And there's been a lot of expectations on his young shoulders, but he looks completely at home in this grade. And this is now a chance for him to take some ownership of the team, which is really exciting.
Yeah, John, it's, I'm sure they'll get people there at Kellyville tomorrow just to check out Lorenzo playing a full game, or what was likely to be a full game of Jersey Flegg rather than coming off the bench. And as you also mentioned, it's a chance to see some of the SG Ball players now showcasing their wares in Jersey Flegg. Last week, John, was pretty typical in a way of the SG Ball. The talent and depth of the Jersey Flegg, I should say, of the Jersey Flegg squad is off the charts. It absolutely is. And they've got strike power all over the park. There is I think one of the key players is Dom Destratus in this team because I saw a list of the competition's top try scorers, and he was the top of the Eels try scorer list there. Now, bearing in mind as well that there was quite a few Eels players that were around that 6-7 try mark, and he was sitting on 7 tries for the season so far. But it's not just the tries he scores; it's the tries that are set up from a line break that involves him. He just runs some great lines, and he and Matthew Hunter had developed a great relationship.
A great feel before the line of where to find each other in the soft spot of the defense. Yeah,
and of course the thing is with Dom is that he's got that versatility that they can switch him to centre. They can switch what sides he plays on. Last week they were having some problems around that right edge centre against the Roosters, and so for the second half, Jordan Rankin just threw Dom at right centre,
trying to plug that hole.
And pretty much it did plug that hole. But as I said, I've highlighted Dom there, but as I said, there is strike power all over the park. I thought last week the last couple of weeks actually, Cameron Bamblett has just been playing some outstanding football at fullback, and he's now playing in the halves. So you'd imagine he's going to see a lot more ball. I'm not sure whether his background includes playing in the halves.
He did play a couple of games in the SG Ball at the start of the season, but his best form definitely came at fullback. So going to be interesting to see how he can handle this jump back into the front line of playmaking. Or if there is another change on the cards. I'm just trying to I mean, Lincoln Fletcher, assuming that he's healthy, could be an option, I guess, to bring in. Would give you another frontline play, like a traditional frontline playmaker who would have experience playing for Lorenzo. But I think if Lincoln was going to play, he would have been named. They've been pretty forthright and upfront about these SG Ball promotions and not trying to sneak him in there. So I would expect, them to play in some configuration as we've seen there. I was trying to figure who else could maybe feature. No. Maybe promoting Lachlan Konakis into the team and putting one of the halves into the rakes into the halves. No, I think that you're probably just going to see Cameron in the front line.
Yep. John, look, apart from, I mentioned Dom, but the Eels middles are a real strength. And the backs have, they've really been unleashed off the work that the middles have done. And even with not having Damascus this week, you still look at the middles that are there.
I mean, Tyrese and Tiankum are a fantastic pair of middles there. Yeti's been really good this year, been a great pickup from the Warriors, gets a chance to play against his former club this week. We haven't even mentioned that, but Yeti's been really good off the interchange, getting the chance to start this week. Yeah, I like the middle 60s. Tom Summers been really good since coming up into the grade. Rugged, sort of more shorter stature forward, but really good with the post contact and the ability to break a tackle. We see Ryder now getting his shot. Ryder's very talented. Very, very keen to see how he handles that transition here.
Another young one.
Yeah, another young one, exactly. This team is so far removed from the quote unquote, first stringers or best choice team. And yet here we are saying, wow, I'm excited about this guy coming in to replace and excited about that guy coming in to replace, which again just speaks to how talent rich the Eels are right now and at this flag and ball level, and why we've put such an emphasis on being on the front foot for these retentions, and why we said that the Will Latu Jezaiah Funa-Iuta announcement was an important first step. And we're seeing that here with this team. Look at how many young players we are legitimately excited about. And obviously not all of them are going to come to the NRL and not all of them are going to be NRL superstars. But this is how you become a successful club in the long term, is having these options available and having them retained. And I think the club's making the right moves there. And I think looking at
John,
team,
the middles on the bench, you notice the common factor?
On the Jersey Flegg bench?
Yes.
We got Tom Summer, Ryder Twangy, and Bo Lucian. I guess you're suggesting they came from a similar team?
Yes.
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 Yeah, they are all ball graduates, which is, again, a testament to the depth of that program to come into this top 4 Jersey Flegg program. And for us to not be saying, well, geez, the team's looking weak. Like, we're going to struggle for the middle. A lot of SG Ball graduates in this team. Obviously, no Jezaiah Funa-Iuta because of representative duties. But we've seen Isaac Jim in the squad as well, 60s. Elijah Shane Tapa'u's also been around the squad. The fact that they're not there now, not sure if it's injury or, as you've mentioned, they could be part of the development programs that have been run alongside the Jersey Flegg. But, yeah, you can see Jordan Rankin's really immersing all these SG Ball players into the squad now. They've been orientated, they've been inducted, and now they've been told, just stick at them, get into the opposition, and they're really doing a great job. So very excited.
You know what? I'll tell you what it looks like, John, because this is a debate I think that's always there around pathways, age football in clubs. What's the purpose there? Is it to win the competitions at those levels,
or develop NRL
or
prospects?
to develop NRL players? Now you look at this and you see the number of players that have been blooded since the SG Ball ended, and you know that there are some players that are out with injury or elevations or what have you. But you also know that there's players who are probably fit and they're being rotated around so that more of that squad is getting game time. And I guess that's one of the challenges there for Jordan Rankin, is that in normal circumstances, a Jersey Flegg team would be one of the more volatile teams to be a part of. Volatile because of all the change that happens. They're impacted by whatever happens in both grades above them, because in both grades above them, injury, suspension, gain or loss of form, whatever the case may be, filters down and impacts them, because then their players are called upon. So what you're seeing now is the impact of SG ball influx into the larger squad as a whole, and the need to juggle game time and opportunity for them, and for the team to have change week in, week out, and be consistent in form is, a testament to Jordan Rankin and the coaching staff of this team, and also to the players as well, that they're able to adjust to a different player next to them. Yep. They know their roles, and this is where it comes down to embedding a playing style and systems in a team, and I think they're doing a good job with that. Now, here's the criticism I have of the team after talking it up big time, and you might think this is a bit rough to find a criticism. Every week, there will be an error from a kickoff.
Yes, that
after the momentum is there.
Yeah.
And it's like, whether it's a moment that, the focus is switched off or what have you, because it's not the same player that it happens to, but invariably the Eels will be on a run of a few tries, and then they'll surrender momentum for a period of time off a really simple error, like dropping the kickoff or dropping a hit up just in the kickoff set. They just don't get to the kick in the kickoff set. If they can complete those sets after a kickoff, after point,
they will steamroll their opposition.
Because as I said, they've, the potential in this team is there, and it's, Jersey Flegg's not renowned for defence, but this Eels team, they're pretty good with defence. But because invariably as well, it's not just the error that's made. It's not unusual for, maybe a series of penalties or 6 agains or something like that will follow immediately after the error. There will be a string of errors or indiscretions or what have you that invariably accompany this change of momentum or add to the change of momentum. So I'll be looking for maybe just a little improvement in discipline this week, and see that can guide them towards another victory. As you said, they're sitting third, John. They're going great this season. I have to tip an Eels win in this. Exposed form has third against ninth, a team that is great to watch. You've always got the unexpected with the Warriors, because they are going to show up with talent in their team. It's just a matter of whether it clicks or doesn't click on the day.
I mean,
so the Eels have to be wary of that.
I look at that team. Jet Cleary, obviously a pretty famous surname there. He's had a pretty good year after jumping from the Panthers to the Warriors. I think we saw Joseph Ratcliffe in the SG Ball a year or two ago, 60s, and he was pretty handy at fullback. But look, Eels should win this one, and that's always a dangerous sort of way to phrase the game. But even with all the changes, I just look at the players that are coming for the Parramatta Eels, and it's exciting. And like these are guys who are going to contribute, and significantly, particularly guys like Lorenzo and Cameron Bambut, who have a great chance to, saying entrench yourself is wrong because they've already entrenched themselves, but give Jordan Rankin some serious food for thought about the composition of his team moving forwards, and whether other players should be forced into the New South Wales Cup because of their presence in the Jersey Flegg, and creating those sort of questions around the club would just be really good. And I think that they should win this 160s, and I'm really keen to see how those SG ball players fare against the Warriors.
Yep. Which now brings us to the main game of the weekend, which is the New South Wales Cup. And that also is at Kellyville. And the game is meant to kick off at 1 p.m. So we've got the early start at 11 a.m. for the Jersey Flegg, and then the 1 p.m. kickoff for the New South Wales Cup. Yep. Now, if we've got a bit of a breezy day, I'm going to suggest to people that they rug up, because the early part of the day you'll be in the shade in the stand there, unless you want to go and sit on the little hill that's there, or just to the side of the grandstand where you get some sun, or maybe just at the front of the stand, you might start to get a bit of sun in the early part of the afternoon. Yep, but it's when the breeze is blowing there at Kellyville, it can be a little bit chilly.
It's been very breezy in Sydney too, and it's been that wind factor cutting through whatever warmth you got. So yeah, pack some nice polar fleece and get in the sun.
Yes, but as I said, it's nice, comfortable surroundings there, wonderful facilities. So 1 o'clock for the Eels taking on the Warriors in New South Wales Cup, and it's the top of the table Warriors, John.
Yeah, this had all the makings of a barn burner in terms of table positions, but the Eels have been ravaged by injuries, and they take on the table-topping Warriors, who come into this game with 12 wins and the 1 loss, absolutely killing it in reserve grade this year. Eels, not too bad for their side of the equation, 9 wins, 1 draw, 3 losses. So they've been very handy in their terms of their own personal form, but they are far from full strength this week, and it's going to make the proposition of knocking over the Warriors that much more Herculean. But still, we go through the team as always and see how the Eels can possibly win this one. At fullback, you got Arpa Twiddle. On the wings, Alfred Smalley and Bo Newlands. Raz Namva and Samuel Louise are in the centres. So no Richard Penasini, no Jake Tungor, obviously no Joash Papali. A lot of changes there in the back line. In the halves, we have Matthew Hunter and Ronald Volkman, although Joshua Lynn not present in any grade. Would not be shocked to see him. I think Lynn was actually named initially, wasn't he, 60s? And then Volkman was...
No, I've been a little bit out of the loop,
yeah,
John.
Sorry, if I recall correctly, it was Hunter and Lynn named provisionally on Team List Tuesday, but an updated team list then had Ronald Volkman coming at 7. So that's definitely something to monitor there. As you alluded to, 60s, pulling Volkman out makes a lot of sense ahead of our game against the Titans the following week. In the front row, though, no Wiremu Greg, no Tony Mattielli again. We believe suspension the factor there, which means Brock Parker and Kane Kalachi are starting in the bookends. Joe Lussick gets
one more from last week. Yeah. Continuing on from last week.
Joey Lussick starting at dummy half over Brendan Hands this week. Bryce Cartwright and Dan Keir on the edges. Keir back from that hammy, I believe it was, 60s. And he's going to have the C next to his name and be the captain, of course. No Charlie Geimer. Saxon Pryke taking over at lock forward there. I mentioned no Charlie Geimer, no Will Latu either. Just the injuries are just mounting up. Injury suspension, I have no idea. We don't get the rap sheets in this.
Or rest. Or
could be rest, yeah, could be. But regardless, Nathan Cale is not dealing with a full deck of cards this week. But then on the interchange, you got Brendan Hands.
He's got his wits about him. He's just not got the full deck of cards. Yeah.
Yes, the importance of paraphrasing the idiom there, yeah. But on the interchange, Brendan Hands, Max Tupou, and then 2 exciting inclusions, 60s. Damascus Nehemiah has been outstanding in the Jersey Flegg. He gets a deserved call-up to this grade regardless of personnel issues, suspensions and injuries or otherwise. Alongside him, Will Lewis, who was a late starter to the Jersey Flegg but has been really good. Gets another look in here at this grade. And I believe he has played Cup last year, but has been really handy on the edges in the Jersey Flegg. And he gets
a good young bloke.
Yeah, and a great young bloke too. So very excited to see Will getting a shot here alongside Damascus. And they're taking on a team that's got plenty of talent, 60s. Tane Tuapiki, Morgan Harper, Moala Graham Taufa, Edward Cozy, Tanner Boyd, Tom Arley, Freddie Lussick, Bunty Afoa. I think Eddie Bunty, yeah. Kalani Going, I've seen him play a bit of NRL, and he's definitely been fated as a player of the future for the Warriors. Who else we got here? Even a player like Eddie Remia Tova, I think we've seen a little bit of NRL from him. You can see why they've been so successful. They've got a very strong team across the park and no real weaknesses there. And the Eels, they're going to have to produce a real special effort this week, 60s. I think there's no way of sugarcoating that. They're down on troops. They've got home field advantage, don't get me wrong, that's going to be useful. But they're taking on an almighty juggernaut of a team, and they're down on troops. So how do the Eels win this one, mate? How do they spring the upset?
I'm looking at the team, John, and I'm thinking, it all comes down to the forwards. The Eels probably have that little bit more. I'm trying to use the word experience, but it's not even that. I think it's the form of the players that are in the pack as well. So, yes, there is some NRL experience when you're talking about Joey Lussick at dummy half, Bryce Cartwright, Dan Keir, and Brendan Hands coming off the bench. And then you've got a couple of blokes who have been two of the most consistent in the New South Wales Cup in the starting bookends in Brock Parker and Kane Kalashi, and both unheralded, but both who have been integral to the platform that's been laid by the Eels this year. And last week against a Roosters team that had featured the return of Sam Walker, they contained them. The Eels were so dominant. The Roosters got a couple of late tries.
Yeah, final 7 minutes, I think it was.
Yeah, and the Roosters had, plenty of opportunities, and they made a few errors, as the Eels did as well in the game. But I thought the Eels' defence was outstanding. I thought the work of the forwards was really, really good. And although they're unheralded, for years we've known what you get from Brock Parker, because he's come through pathways and he's been a player that the coaches know that they can rely on to just produce this, like the difference between Brock's top game and his worst game is minimal. His top game might be a 7 or 8 out of 10, and his worst game might be a 7 out of 10. That's literally how consistent that he is. And Kane Kalashi he's almost been a revelation in the middle this year. He's been arguably the best forward this season.
Super consistent. Yeah.
He's just been ultra consistent. Yeah. And, and that often comes by virtue of the fact that if someone's a regular fixture, because you've got players who are in and out of first grade, that if you're talking about who the best forward has been for the season, you can't include the players that have dropped back from first grade or a move between first grade and New South Wales Cup, because they'll come back into Cup and they will stand out in Cup, and then they might get recalled to first grade or what have you, and they'll look like a first grade player playing New South Wales Cup. Kane has just been ultra consistent. He's just producing, like Brock, the difference between his best and worst is minimal. And because he's featured pretty much every week, to me, he's been close to the standout player. And I do want to mention Saxon Pryke, because I really have thought that what I've seen of Saxon in New South Wales Cup this season, he's playing some really hard, tough football. Really mixing it, because he's probably not the biggest middle forward that you would see, but he's playing above his weight.
Real rugged this year, yeah, and
really, really rugged football, and that's not to say that he's hasn't got the physique to play a middle forward.
No,
role.
in this day and age where you've had small lock forwards starting to really flourish, I think there's absolutely a niche for Saxon to carve out here in the team. And if anything, you've seen him start playing with the ball the way that some of the best middles do these days. And we saw some real good games recently in the Flegg in particular, where his ball playing picked apart, I think, the Manly Seagulls 60s. And he just needs to continue to work on that balance between playing tough, hard-nosed defense and rugged carrying alongside a bit of that deft ball playing. If he can get that balance figured out, he's going to be really in a great position to springboard into higher honours.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that his physique is lightweight. I'm just saying he's not one of the biggest middle forwards.
It doesn't help when you're playing alongside guys like Greg and Matteelli and whatnot.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
He's not big boppers.
He's not in that build, but he's in that build that seems to be in favour in the NRL these days.
The more mobile, agile. Yeah.
Yep. And then plays tough on top of it, tough and physical. I just wanted to mention him. Dan Keir being back as well. Dan's like Mr. Workload, Mr. Workaholic, high energy. He's been captain in his appearances this year. I'm not sure what the captaincy situation is this week. I wouldn't surprise if he is captain again with that. We do know that if when he's been out injured, that he'll spend time in the coach's box with Nathan Kalis helping out there as well. So that leadership and vision and that sort of thing is obviously something that comes in handy for Kalo in his role as coach. So, John, you asked where they're going to win it. That's where I think they're going to win it. It's always a tough ask against Warriors forwards. And then I look at the bench, and as I said, you've got Brendan Hands, he's got all that NRL experience. You've got Max Tupu, who's been around for a while, talented forward, and then you've got those elevations of Damascus Nemia and Will Lewis. So they're going to be keen to put themselves in the spotlight there for their future, and this will be an interesting game to watch, because with all the outs, the expectations on the Eels may not be very high this week. And where are we coming? Is it third in Cup, John?
Third in Cup and third in third in Flegg, I believe. So
yes,
it was 3v9 and 1v3, I believe. Yeah,
1v3. Yeah. So I mean, it is a real top of the table clash, but I guess it's a top of table clash with a bit of a difference in terms of the players that are out. But John, for the most part, this was a lot of the players that did the job last week against the Roosters, as I said, who had some class players in that team. Because, last week Harper was there, Alfred Smalley was there, Araz Nanva was there, Samuel Luizio was there, Volkman, Parker, Lussick, Kalashi, Cartwright, Saxon Pryke, Brendan Hands. So they were all part of the team last week. So although there's been lots of changes and lots of players that aren't available for selection this week, there's still an element of consistency of that team. So the combinations will still be there in a sense, and even the inclusions like Matthew Hunter. I think that still adds to the team. What is it that Pele Papali said in his speech to Joash? What was it? Add value.
Add value, yeah.
To your teammates.
All lines are just make a difference. Add value.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I think Dan Keir coming back in will do that. I think Matthew Hunter coming in will do that. So, and I'm sure the young ones that are getting their opportunities, it'll be the same. So. I recognise the challenge that's going to be there against not just a talented lineup, but a lineup that's been producing the goods in the Warriors. But you can't have asked for too much more from the Eels this season in New South Wales Cup. There's been a couple of games,
the Dogs game and the Manly game, the first Manly game, where they were below their best. But considering the amount of rotation and sort of impact that other grades have had on the Cup, I think that Nathan Kalis has really done a great job, and I think he probably deserves. It's too early to say he deserves these flowers, but I think he deserves a tip of the hat for sure this year. He's been very good as a coach and extracting as much value out of his squad as possible.
Yeah, I think Kalo's probably enjoyed working with Jason Riles this year as well, and you've seen that connectivity from the junior reps through to these grades. And as an example of that, John, last week, who was on the sideline in Jersey Flegg as well there, Josh Hodgson, the Harold Matts coach there, working with the Flegg team, and has been evidently, will even go up and do work with the NRL team as well from time to time. So, it's all of the coaches are seen to have a value that they provide for the NRL and for the club as a whole. So, look, I have to go with the upset victory here, which is an Eels win, obviously. But I'm just really looking forward to seeing how the players perform under a little bit of a challenging circumstance, but with that home ground advantage, which hopefully adds that little bit more. So,
I
John,
think realistically the Warriors probably deserve the favouritism by a bit of a margin here. Like you, though, I'm very keen to see how the young guys go. And I think with the way the bench is set up, you're going to see the young guys getting some good minutes. And I think the one that I'm really keen on, and not to do a disservice to the other guys, but it's Damascus, who has been outstanding through long stretches in the Jersey Flegg. And he's got the ability to, in a way, he reminds me of Moses Leota, who can just hit a gear sometimes in a game and just has that run that just like skittles defenders and sort of completely changes the tone of a set. And I'm keen to see if we can do that with the big boys in the New South Wales Cup. And really keen to see how this one plays out. And hopefully the Eels just competitive 60s. They're so down on troops in this grade that if they're even close to being competitive, they've done really well this week. But maybe an upset could be on the cards. Who knows?
and of course, John will be covering that on the
coverage of both grades. Correct.
Yep. So if you're not watching a live stream, or even if you are,
join the conversation on TCT. Exactly.
Yeah. Jump in, add your thoughts. So it's there as a live blog, whether you're watching the vision from a live stream, or you're coming in after the game's over to add your opinion, or reading it as a match report. However you use our live blog, there's a lot of people that do. We're really happy about that, and thank you to all the people who do come over and say g'day and introduce themselves and say how much they appreciate the coverage of lower grades. So it keeps us pushing ahead with doing that sort of thing. So, John, you can probably hear the phone going in the background.
You got some stuff to attend to.
We'll sign off again. Thank you to our sponsors, Star Partners Real Estate, Auburn, Narellan and Parramatta, and of course the home of the Eels, Parramatta Leagues Club. Thank you everyone for either watching or listening to this podcast. John, thank you for all the support that you've been providing for me over what's been a challenging, best part of a month now.
Yeah, it's closing on a month. Yeah.
So I really appreciate that. And again, thank you to everyone who's reached out. And as I always say, go you mighty Eels.